And we are back. We're back on the stream again. It's Brandon T. Roberts on Twitter again. Zach, you want to throw your handle out there real quick?
Yeah, it's right down
Right down there. You
there.
go. Right there. Zach
Zach at
DeRose.
Zach DeRose.
Yep, Zach DeRose on Twitter. You should follow him. Have some good discussions there. But yeah, this is a continuation of a conversation me and Mike had yesterday about forms in Angular, and I've titled this series of streams "Angular Unfiltered," and this is part two of Angular Forms. So we'll see where it goes. But yeah, like I said, this is Zach, and I'm Brandon,
Yeah.
and
I
go ahead.
feel like I got some big shoes to fill. Mike really went off yesterday, and man, so it's interesting. It's interesting because a lot of what he said really resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in general, like, so Mike's whole thing was tell him why you're sad, right?
Yep.
Like I'm kind of happy with how reactive forms are. So I guess that's one thing too. One thing that Mike said that was really interesting to me was, the mutating forms and just having that like template driven forms, the banana in a box stuff was actually worked kind of well with forms. That was something I've been thinking about a lot since he said it. So going back several years to when I was first getting into Angular stuff, I was kind of like thrown into this project, didn't know much about web development at all, and like had to build this huge app that was pretty much all forms. And I didn't really understand, template versus reactive. They both seem about the same. Let's just go with template. That looks easier. And like the whole premise of this app was you had to react to the inputs of the user. And man, doing that, like we never really switched that one over to reactive forms. So we were just using the template driven stuff. And man, we were hooking into like do check hooks in Angular, and is like this huge blocks of code, like hundreds of lines long.
If you get down in the weeds with template driven forms and you're doing do check, then you might want to like question what you're doing. Right?
Yeah, well, I think Mike said that too. Like if you're actually wanting to build some reactiveness into your app, you got to go with reactive forms. In retrospect, I don't know if there's a better way to do it if you really want to make your stuff reactive. But if you want to just like minimal stuff like that, you can just rely on Angular change detection for. I think maybe I haven't given it enough thought. That's kind of what I was thinking from what Mike said. Because there's I remember having this debate with an engineer I was working with at the time. It was like reactive forms are objectively better. And I kind of concede that now, but at the time I was arguing, look how simple it is. Like you've got your little property on your class, and you just let everything happen to it. So
yeah, but
I don't know.
Let's see. So let's rewind that a second. You're good with the majority of how. Okay, I guess there's two parts. With what Mike said yesterday, type safety, complex forms, and being more reactive. You agree with them on those points, but you are saying that there are some good parts about reactive forms, but there are ways to make them better, right?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like I'm reasonably happy with the way that they left it. Like if you think about type safety, for example, it's not all that difficult to extend the form control class to just say, the pieces I care about, this is actually definitely typed, or type safe. So you can extend the form control class and just overwrite the value changes. So rather than an observable of any, it's like an observable of the interface you're looking at. So I'm okay with that. I get what Mike was saying, where it makes him sad. Like it seems like it would be so much easier just to have it be a generic, where you can pass in the value type, and be able to do that with errors as well. So you just get better stuff on that. But it's not that hard to overwrite. And my thinking is maybe that was their goal. Like they want to.
Saying that the goal was to create kind of a baseline of something that people could build on top of, or you don't think it was you think it was intentionally left out?
I don't. It seems like a glaring. It does seem kind of like a glaring thing because it wouldn't. Like I said, it's not that hard to make it generics, and then you can still just kind of let people opt out of putting definite types in there, anyways. But yeah, I think that's kind of my take on it. And I've seen a lot of people, post about this is how you do it, where you can overwrite the types, and I think a lot of people are doing that from the from the work we've been doing at Narwhal. Every time there's a form thing, man, I'm like, let me do it.
I know, because I'm like, I do the same thing. If somebody comes with me with form questions, I'm like, where is Zack? I don't see him on Slack. Let me hold on and see if he's around.
Yeah.
Talk about some forms. But yeah. Let's talk about more reactive forms in general. What's like we'll say the gnarliest thing that you ever had to do with reactive forms to get it to do what you wanted it to do? And do you think that falls into like the normal use case of what people have to do to get reactive forms working?
No, I think there are tools in the Forms API to get you to where you can do reactive forms reasonably well. That's kind of my baseline. That said, I think it's really easy to going on from our first step, go back through my history. First time we did template forms, we were like, okay, this was a mistake. Let's fix this next time around. And so we had, I think Mike had brought this up too in y'all's last conversation. It was like wizards where you had multiple pages routed that needed to be on their own routes. We have like each one is just a section of a form, and we want to pass them all through, and then have a single submit button at the bottom. And so going through that, like we must have tried 5 different ways of doing that before we finally like got it. Where we're like, okay, there's a form group at the parent that controls all of them, and like every time one of the child routes has a change, we're listening for that at the parent, and we're updating the form group at the top level. So there's all this like manual syncing going on between our different controls. So where it seems like it should be much easier to compose these things, so you can just kind of pass a form control around or a form group around, and just like say, okay, this exists here in this template, but it also exists as a child over here. That could get very difficult, I think, especially when you get routing in there and stuff like that. Like I think we ended up having like form groups on services and stuff like that. Which was just
oh yes, form groups on services. Those are lovely.
Yeah, and not at all what you should be doing, I think. But it's like it's not self-evident which way you go with it.
It's not common. It's not. You're saying it's not. It lends itself for you to like naturally reach to putting your form control or form in a service so that you can pass it around that way, which is not what you should be doing, but what it kind of lends you to do easily, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's just this. It doesn't seem like there's enough guidance there. Like the way we ended up implementing this, and I think this was much better, is we would take we would take down our different pieces of like we would identify here's a reusable piece right here. Let's make a control value accessor for that. And that really helped that along. And it was like it instantly cleaned our code. So we're not doing this weird syncing of groups across via inputs and outputs and stuff like that. But there is so much boilerplate. Yeah, I know that's a trigger word. Right, I was
about to go in.
It's not about NGRX, I swear. NGRX is not boilerplate.
I thought we were friends.
We are friends. Y'all have convinced me on that. And all of the NGR stuff is not boilerplate. This stuff, however, I think is boilerplate. To the point where, when Mike was saying someone needs to go in and like make this easier. That's kind of where my mind was going. Like, is there some way, using some of the stuff with Ivy and the more meta programming we can do now to take that pattern. Like, so my forms course that I did with Narwhal, a lot of that was just on using the control value accessor pattern to break down your forms and make them smaller, test them, get them, have this very structured way of looking at it. Here's one piece, control value accessor for that. And then you kind of like box it up and put it away. And now whenever you need it, you take it off the shelf and drop it in.
Yeah, so just for a quick explanation, control value accessor is an interface you implement to build reusable controls. Is that fair to say?
Yes, right. So the idea is, the way I like to describe it is, you know how when you just use a form control and you can use that nice form control directive in your template? Control value accessor is a way of doing that, like implementing your own version of that. So rather than it being just like a text or something like that, you can actually like pass in on one of your own components. So instead of like a input tag, you can make your own tag, kind of name it whatever you want, and just say, well, now you can use that form control directive. So yeah, and it's the interface and it's the provider. It's like two of those things hand in hand.
Yeah.
And with those things, Angular just kind of puts it together, and that's all the Angular Forms API doing its stuff.
Gotcha. So that kind of leads us into where we talked about this conversation. You had some ideas on how the reactive forms could be better as far as handling these cases. So you wanna talk about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, these are all half baked, so forgive me if I'm just kind of like,
this episode is half baked, so it's okay. We're throwing these ideas out here, and we're seeing where they go. So these ideas may turn into an actual thing. But yeah, let's see. We want to hear some ideas.
All right, let's do it. So I think yesterday someone linked on your stream. They posted like the NGRX forms package. So I took a look into. So this is at NGRX forms. This is NGRX dash forms, which seemed interesting. It seemed very interesting to me because it seemed like they were attacking some of the problems that Mike had mentioned, where like there's definite type safety. And like it's going. I think the reason they called it NGRX forms is because like they're using the whole like pattern.
It's hooked into the store as far as it basically uses the store, the global store, as like local state for each form.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't like that. I didn't look too deep into it, but what I did see was that they were writing their own reducers for the stuff. Yeah. And maybe my assumption was wrong, but I was thinking they're not actually putting it in the global store. They're actually just maintaining their own local state where they have some form state and then reducers that will go update that. So.
Yeah, I think it was essentially using the store as like a back end, but yeah, I think the idea is that if you had a local store, component store plug, Alex, if you had a local store, then you could possibly use that instead of using the global store for doing some of the mechanics behind the scenes, right?
Yeah. So I was thinking about that. I just felt like that seemed like it was maybe a little bit overkill for what I think you'd want to be doing. So like if we break it down with the things we want to actually use, where I would want to go is have some sort of plugin using meta programming that we can just kind of automatically pass in, like in the decorator or using something. I need to look into more of the Ivy stuff that we can do now, but it seems like we should be able to do something where we just say, hey, this is a component that has, it has an internal form control that should sync up with the external form control that, when we call it what we're going to use. And maybe we pass in some additional information inside of that meta programming level to say these are the certain validators it needs to care about. These are certain ways it needs to update itself. I feel like part of the reason that forms is so hard to do is like it's just a very, very complicated
Right.
topic, like almost disarmingly so. Like you look at it and you think, oh, forms, that's easy. I've done that.
Mm-hmm.
But then like you hit some new. There's all these different like caveats you can put on it that start to make things really interesting. That's why I always ask to be included on any forms questions, because it's like intellectually stimulating to go after that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I think the solution too is to, it kind of hinges on being very reactive. So that ngrx-forms package, it had these types that were like the form state. So it would do. I think there was like one object that was like you would have an observable of that one object, and that would have everything on it. And that's one of the things too. I don't think Mike mentioned this, but like you get a stream of like status, which are these weird string tokens, which is, it's fine. Like you can make it work, but it would be. You don't get like a stream of your error object. You just get
You get status. You get what status changes and value changes, right? And that's
those are the two. That's it. Yeah. So you can do stuff where like, and this is kind of unfortunately hacky, but
when you get into the point where you're saying, you can do it if you just hack these three things together, you can kind of put it together. Yeah.
I'm guessing this is where sort of Mike's sadness is coming into, because it's just like it could be so easy.
It sounds like you're getting sad right now.
Yeah, maybe the more I talk about it, the more.
I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
But yeah, so you can do stuff where you listen to status changes, and then like you switch from that into what the error object actually looks like, and your stream is now like dependent on side effects, kind of, because you're just kind of hooking into what just happens to be in that errors thing. So it's not super safe. But
so if there were more things that could be exposed through reactive forms besides value changes and status, like what do you think those things like touch? I think when the input is touch will probably be another one, right? What kind of more information would you want out of there to be able to not have to like cobble these things together?
Yeah, I do like what I saw in that package I was looking at, where it just kind of lumped everything forms currently does, like value, status, errors, all that stuff into one observable stream. I think that I like that part about it quite a bit.
So you get a lot. I'm trying to see. I think I see where you're going here. You get a lot of flexibility if you just have a stream of. I'm putting on my Rob hat here. Everything is a stream.
Yeah.
if everything that comes out of there is in a stream, right? Then you can choose what you want to do with it, right?
Yeah. I think RxJS is such an amazing library for being able to really precisely control streams. I guess if you want to think about it that way. So giving us just as a framework, if Angular was able to give us, here's a stream of your form state that we can do, and that may be where we'd come in with some other packages to go on top of that to say, this is how we're going to take that stream and like equivalent of selectors to get to the pieces of information we want through it, or just map operations, whatever you're going to do. I think those would, that would give the Angular developers out of the box all the tools they'd need to really do most of the stuff they got to do. I think the other thing that needs work, though, and Mike touched on this, was like when you create the control value accessor. So when you implement that interface, you're kind of creating this. You're implementing a reactive stream, but the way you're doing that is with callback functions and triggers based on the Angular framework, which is it's just kind of unfortunate.
You can say it.
I'm sad.
It's not reactive. No.
It's not reactive. Yeah, that's kind of what it's getting at.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I don't want to say it's not reactive. Like, I think even just Angular change detection itself, that's a way of doing like a reactive app. You know, it's not as complete, and you don't have as much precision over it as like using RxJS, but you can make it work.
Yeah.
And I think Angular doesn't get enough credit for some of that stuff.
Yeah. Let's be clear that we don't want to like hammer on change detection and Angular, completely, but we do want to see some of the thing. There are some good parts there, but we do want to see some of those things get better, just so that it makes our lives easier.
Oh my goodness! I talk to Jeff about this all the time. It's like they were looking at a crystal ball when they dropped Angular 2. Like so relative obscurity for TypeScript and RxJS at the time, and then Angular 2 like comes out and fully embraces those extremely bold choices to make, and I think that those two things are two of the best parts about Angular, I think. So yeah, I'm continually impressed by that, and I just want to see it taken further. Like Angular seems to have out of the box a lot of reactive stuff that you could hook into, and truly reactive or not, it's maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I need to think about that some more, but like if you can get to the point where you have an observable that you can like rely on, that's kind of what I'm looking for. And you can kind of, like I said, you can kind of get that from what Angular gives you out of the box. It would be nicer if it was more, it's just here you go out of the box.
Right.
And it would be nicer too if you could implement more of their stuff with RxJS stuff. So yeah.
So what I gather at least is that we, at a minimum, we need the Reactive Forms API to give us more information in a single stream, right?
Yeah. Well, the other one we haven't even got to yet is it just needs to be better, more composable.
Yeah.
And this is where I try to push control value accessors as being a really good tool for doing that. But there's just so much boilerplate you got to do every time you kind of implement one of those. So it's very easy to forget stuff. It's almost like maybe we should make a schematic for that at some point. just make sure you get everything covered.
Ding ding ding! I should have like these coins, this coin sound whenever somebody says like boilerplate, or hey, we should do a schematic for that. It's just like
so yeah. The schematic is like a band-aid over the problem. Like the package is like the ultimate goal. Like when I heard Mike talking about that yesterday, like someone needs to go out there and do a package. That's kind of what came to mind. Doing some sort of package that can get you to implement that, control value accessor very simply without even having to think about it. And you just say, and this is specifically for the case where you have the just basic HTML form components that you're building that you want to compose from. The other use case for the view, the control value accessor is when you want to make a form out of something that isn't a form. Yeah. Like if you, there's some neat stuff you can do with that too. Like if you want to do like the canvas object or something with dragging and dropping stuff around there, it's really good for that. But like again, to implement all the stuff you're calling callback functions and like registering methods on the component, it would be nicer if there was some way of just saying, here's a stream, here's an observable of everything changes, just hook up everything off of that Angular. So those are my thoughts, and like I said, half baked, but
hey, that's okay.
It's close. It's close.
Yeah, I think it's close. So we'll dig one more question, then we'll wrap this one up. Have you like hacked on any of these ideas, or just in general? You don't have to go into things specific. Like as far as what you mentioned about like making the control value accessor, making you not have to do so much boilerplate to do that. Have
Yeah.
you done any of that, or just at least played around with it?
I've, since so much of our stuff at my last company was, working with forms, we did a good amount of trying to do meta programming on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't really happy with the solutions at the time because we were using like abstract classes to do stuff, and it's just like now you have to have like 10 panes of code up to trace everything that's happening. It wasn't a good solution, but I've tried that kind of stuff, and I think I want to do it more now that Ivy's out. I want to understand what all the different things we can do with metaprogramming now. And I think with Ivy, a lot of that stuff got unlocked. So I haven't hacked around with it since then, but I'm wanting to now.
Okay.
When Mike said that,
like
I wanted to. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if we can get to it. But
we're gonna have
when Mike said that, I was like, yes. Yeah. Cool.
But yeah, that's it. We'll wrap. We'll say that's it for this one. As we mentioned again, I'm Brandon T. Roberts on Twitter. He's Zack DeRose. Let's see if I can get this pointing right. He's there. If you can see him.
The mirrors is messing me up, man.
You have to make sure you point the opposite direction that you're thinking you're supposed to. But yeah, that's all we're gonna do for today, and we'll see y'all again in soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Brandon.
Yep. See ya.
See ya.